Hello and a very good evening to you. You're watching Times Now Live. I'm Pratibha. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, India will be entering 2023 amid a COVID scare. India has reported 243 new COVID cases in the last 24 hours. And the Karnataka government, remember, earlier this week had also mandated all events held to celebrate New Year's Eve and New Year's Day should end by 1 a.m. According to a survey conducted, 55% of Indians indicated that they plan to stay with immediate family members at home, while 5% have no plans to celebrate New Year this year because of a risk of COVID and other reasons. As the concerns over the global resurgence of COVID-19, especially in China, India earlier this week had also announced that flyers coming from China and 5 other nations, including Japan, China, Singapore, Hong Kong, Republic of Korea and Thailand, will have to provide a negative COVID-19 test report before departing to India. Now, a pre-departure RT-PCR negative test report will also be mandatory for the passengers from January 1st, 2023. All right, Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, Chairperson of Nephron, joining us on the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, first up, as you know, people get all set to celebrate New Year's Eve. What is the one word of caution that you'd like to give?
The one word of caution is precaution. The countries like US, Canada, UK, Germany, Italy, France, Korea, of course China, needless to say, Singapore, are seeing a huge upsurge, including UK. And the real reason is of the recombinant mutations which have been seen, and the two most commonly ones which we are now seeing, which is now called as the most super variant, is called as XBB 1.5. And this is supposed to be spreading almost 120 times more than the parent lineage of BA.2. It also adds on and attaches to your host cell, your respiratory cells, much quicker, what is called as receptor binding affinity. So please take precaution. Please wear a mask. It should be an appropriate specification mask of N95. Keep social distancing. Yes, enjoy the New Year's, but your New Year should not warrant a COVID attack. A lot of them are still asymptomatic and you can get a mild disease, a subclinical disease. But I want to add 2 important points in this. Even a mild attack can precipitate long COVID. It can cause neurological and cardiac and pulmonary damage in the long run, onwards of 2 months, almost going up to a year. And the second important thing is that even if you get a mild attack, it can actually warrant long-term impact, especially in children, what we call as multi-organ involvement. So please be careful, get your vaccines done, especially your booster dose, and take adequate precautions. Do not neglect mild symptoms. Consult your local doctor. Please do not self-medicate.
Okay, all right. That's an important part of caution, not to self-medicate. Also want to introduce Dr. Rahul Pandit from the Department of Critical Care, Reliance Foundation Hospital, joining us from Mumbai. Dr. Rahul, want to ask you, when you say that even if there are mild symptoms, as Dr. Bagai just told us, be careful and be extremely vigilant. But in this season especially, a lot of people also have a common cold. That's also one of the symptoms, or a sore throat as well. That's also a symptom that many have during the season as well. So, how should people know, or is it best to, be cautious completely? Or how do you differentiate between, a sore throat or these kind of symptoms that are happening because of the change in season and one that could be, perhaps COVID? All right. We don't have Dr. Rahul Pandit anymore. Dr. Bagai, can you take that question on how we can differentiate?
Sure. So most viral attacks, be it a common influenza, what we call as a common flu, or indeed a COVID infection, or even the common respiratory infections like adenovirus or Coxsackie virus, these are different viruses which cause cold and cough. In the first 1 or 2 days, they present exactly the same. A little bit of body ache, maybe headache, little nausea, vomiting, maybe abdominal symptoms, irritation in the throat with or without cough or cold or a stuffy nose. The medication really for this is just pure simple paracetamol in case you have fever or body ache. In case it's a common influenza or any other common upper respiratory infection, it tends to settle within a day or two. But the word of caution over here is that since the infections of the upper respiratory tract in the first 48, 72 hours are overlapping, please isolate yourself, wear a mask, please get your test done for COVID. Please get either a home antigen test, which is a rapid test, or a RT-PCR at the end of first day of symptom, because your pickup really is in your second day of symptom. Don't neglect it. If your RT-PCR is positive, continue your isolation. I want to add Omicron isolation should be a minimum of 7 to 9 days, not 5 days. Restrict your entry and exit from the house so that you don't transmit this infection to others. In case a child is infected, inform the school so that the local contacts, the immediate contacts are also screened. It's all about being cautious, being responsible, and informing the local health authorities. We suffered a lot in the Delta wave. This present Omicron, what I'm talking about, of XBB 1.5 is supposed to be a sinister one. Hopefully it will not impact India that much because of our fantastic vaccine protection and a nationwide community-acquired immunity, what we call as herd immunity. But it is better to be on the safer side than on the sorry side.
Absolutely. Dr. J.A. Jailal, former IMA president, also on the broadcast with us. Dr. Jailal, when we talk about this variant now, because, New Year's, we just had Christmas getting over as well. So because of the holiday season, there are going to be gatherings, even if it's going to be in smaller numbers now because of the awareness around COVID-19 and the spread of coronavirus. But there are still going to be gatherings, a lot of people even going to places like malls, parties as well. So are we going to see a sudden surge in the number of coronavirus cases immediately after? When is it expected to really peak?
Yeah, definitely that we are going to expect these cases when there is people are going, very, very in a crowded situation. If you see the occurrence of the COVID, even the initiation, when there was nearly 1.5 months difference was there from the China to India. Now the China is in the peaking. So to what we are expecting by the month end or the January end, that there is a possibility of the peak of the virus. But now we are entering into the festive season. There's a lot of people are coming around. Even there is a mask. It has been almost removed, even in the airport or in the airplane. Previously, the companies were used to insist on the masking. Now they are also lost the track. And many people are now going around without the mask. So there is a likelihood possibility of the spread of the disease, but still that India is still in a protected place. That what we are talking about, the hybrid immunity, and we may not go into the sudden surge because there is a lot of people who are already infected. They have a good immunity on that, but definitely there will be increase in case. We don't see the peak, but the increase of the case can be noted.
Okay, all right. Dr. Rahul Pandit is back with us. Dr. Rahul Pandit, because there's a lot of concern about this particular variant that is supposed to be much deadlier, how prepared is India in the real sense if you talk about it? We're taking a lot of precautions before a real surge that we're seeing in the country. As of now, the number of cases being reported are still under control, but already the union government has also held high-level meetings, has informed the states as well to up the vigil. So is that going to help? One, and secondly, the immunity of Indians that is being spoken of because of the large-scale vaccination that we are speaking of. Is that something that is going to keep us immune to it? At least, do you think that we're not going to see a massive surge like we saw in perhaps May earlier this year?
So, good afternoon. I'm sorry there was some audiovisual problem with me before. So, look, I think I completely agree with my previous two speakers. It would be naive to say that the cases will not increase. I think the cases will increase slightly. Now, what would be the peak? Nobody really knows. But the good thing, which has been already mentioned by both of my colleague speakers, is that we've got a reasonable amount of hybrid immunity, which is a combination of your vaccine immunity as well as the herd immunity, which we talk about. And that is going to give us a reasonable amount of protection from severity of the disease. We may still find that there might be some patients who would be asymptomatic or would be mildly symptomatic, but I believe that the surge would not be as high as what we saw in the previous waves of Omicron or the Delta. Obviously, the Delta was a completely different breed because the severity of illness was very, very high. Now, from the government's point of view, I think the government has been on top of its game. They have identified the problem very early, and they have already called in the necessary precautions to be taken so that people do not panic. This is not the panic mode which the government of India or the state governments have gone in. This is a preparatory mode. We do not need to reinvent the wheel. We have gone through this whole process for almost 2.5 years now. What we need to do is just rejig our processes. just try and get our team together again in the vigil mode so that we are prepared and hope that it does not hit us as badly as it has hit us before. And that is what probably would happen. We would be prepared, we would be well prepared for it, and we cross our fingers and say that it just came in and did not really make any difference to our day-to-day functioning. As far as day-to-day functioning is going on, I think India should continue to function the way we are. My only preference would be to wear a mask.
Okay.
Personally, all three of us who are sitting there, I can talk for myself. We have not given away our masks still in the crowded places or in the hospitals. We still wear it. And that is now become a personal health habit. I would really request all the viewers to consider mask as a health habit. COVID or no COVID, it is going to be a health habit for us to, if we are going to go in crowded places. That's just going to help us from other viruses as well, even dust particles, pollution as well. So why not make it as a health habit?
Okay, all right. So it should be a health habit that we should maintain, whether we are seeing a surge in coronavirus cases or not. Ensure you wear a mask. In fact, now I believe we also have a lot more, details. We know a lot more about hygiene, and a lot more people are more careful about it than the pre-COVID era. Dr. Dilip Mavalankar, Director of IIPH Gandhinagar and Member Secretary of Gujarat COVID Task Force, also on the broadcast with us. Doctor, want to ask you, the question being, are we being complacent also? In a way, yes, the government has stepped up Vigil. It has conducted meetings, has also asked the states to be alert. But as far as the people are concerned, do you think people are still complacent because they are not seeing in their immediate, in and around, the number of cases increasing? And a comparison, if you can, between what happened in China and in India. Are we seeing a sudden surge in China because people were complacent? They thought COVID is now over, let's ease the restrictions completely. Or what is it? What is the difference that you're going to see in China versus India?
Yeah, if you say we are complacent, to some degree we are, because we are not seeing cases in a large number for last several months. With our natural immunity, infection, as well as our immunization immunity, we have, as everybody said, good amount of community or herd immunity. And that is why the cases were going down. Almost 150 cases or so in the whole country is almost nothing. And that's why people and government and everybody is thinking that this disease had now gone. The pandemic waves are over. But with China's condition and what is happening in China, it is quite worrying to see that we are all well prepared. Even with our immunity, we should be well prepared. And as people said, we have to take precautions. My only additional point is we should do national sero survey. Okay. And also national survey of the T-cell immunity, because everybody thinks we are immune. But we don't know. This is based on the current strains which are circulating in India, that they are not causing anything. But if some new strains come or whatever other strains are there, we have to see how long our immunity lasts. We have substantial number of people who have not taken the booster dose or precaution dose, and they have to be careful and they have to take it as soon as possible whenever it is available. Okay. And we should keep all vigil every day, not weekly or monthly, but every day if the cases have started increasing. The main place where it will come from is the international passengers. So very close surveillance of international passengers, and if needed, stopping the flights from these countries where the major surge is happening should be considered.
Okay, all right. Doctor, stay on with us. Also want to appeal to our viewers to call us. The numbers are flashing on your screens. You can call us any queries that you have. Top doctors from across the country are joining us, so you can ask your questions to them, pose your questions to them. Guru Raj is joining us from Bengaluru. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Guru Raj. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. My question to the experts is, in China seems to predominantly see the BF7 variant, whereas whatever we hear in the news in India, there is talk of BF7, XBB, XBB 1.5, and so on. Yes. So are we likely to see the risk of multiple variants in India? And if so, what kind of protection does Covishield and Covaxin, which we have taken in this country, provide us immunity from those variants?
Okay, Mr. Gururaj, thank you for that question. Joining us on Times Now, Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, would you want to answer that?
Yeah, so what we've seen is very geographic centric. But what we are also now seeing is that we are seeing a swarm. That's a pool of variants which occur simultaneously. In the Western world, it's mainly what has overtaken everything else within the last 7 days is very clearly what we call as XBB 1.5. That's overtaken all other strains altogether. Whereas in China, we are still seeing BQ 1.1, we are seeing BF 0.7 and XBB 1.5. But in India, we are seeing cases sporadic of all, but like my previous speaker who just said, I think serosurveillance and genomic sequencing is important to track and check. 2 or 3 very important words of caution with Christmas, New Year's around. There is a recent study which has unequivocally shown that an increase of 10% of PM 2.5 corresponds to 67% increased transmission of SARS-CoV-2. So we know that pollution precipitates and transmits COVID more. In cold temperature and change in relative humidity, there is also going to be an increase in transmission. So we need to be careful. We also, a quick word on children. Children carry the same viral load. We mentioned this many times last year.
Yes.
They transmit as much. And a recent study in Lancet has shown age group of 10 to 19 transmit even more than adults. So please be careful. Don't consider children to be immune. Do not consider yourself to be immune. In case you have not taken your 3rd booster, it's important. The present Omicron, what we call as super variants, are immune evasive up to 155 times more than your parent strain. I repeat again, these are super immune evasive.
Okay.
So your vaccines will not hold as well as what they did, but they will still hold. But please be careful. Natural infection is not the appropriate way forward.
In fact, that was one of the queries I had as well. What about infants? Because, you know, masking previously with lockdown, it was completely different. Now it's going to be very different. Before that, I want to bring in our viewer, Vishnu, who's joining us from Kollam. Yes, Vishnu, thank you for joining us. What's your query?
Yes, ma'am. I have got 2 questions for the experts. It's 2-pronged. First is regarding the checking of the disease. Should we go for a cocktail? Because actually, Covishield, Covaxin, and Novavax should should we do that or go for a pure one company vaccine throughout? As one, that's one part of the question. And second part, should we also give clearance to exports of the vaccines to other nations as an economic point of view? Because it would create buffers for the nation in money.
Yes, Dr. Jailal?
Yeah, definitely there is a equivocal studies proving that is a mixing of the vaccines and the pure vaccine which we are continuing the same thing. But now India has adopted the policy that we are going to continue with the same vaccination. Though the vaccine which we have taken on the first dose and the second dose is the same vaccine, you are going to take the booster. There is enough scientific evidence to say that, and we are taking the same vaccine is also, it is going to be of equal help for us. But unfortunately, in India, we have only 28% of the people who are due to take the second, booster dose is taken the vaccination. So that quite a large number of the people has not taken the vaccination. When we start the vaccination, there are a lot of vaccine hesitancy was there.
Yes.
Similarly, now also there is some vaccine hesitancy is coming in because of unscientific reports and the rumors which is coming around. The vaccine can cause some more problems like that. But that we should all take into consideration. That the only hope we have now at this moment is encouraging the people to take the booster dose. And once they have, most of the people who are due for taking the booster dose, if you take the vaccine, it is going to be helpful. And if you have an opportunity to take the cocktail vaccine, it is fine. You can take because there is nothing harm in that. But as on Indian policy, our government policy is take the same vaccine to continue for your augment your vaccine, your immunity to face this virus.
Okay, all right. So Dinesh also joining us from Gujarat. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Dinesh.
Thank you. My query is, I'm 79-year-old and I'm diabetic patient. I've taken precaution dose last January to this year. I would like to know whether I'm still immune.
Dr. Dilip?
Or shall I? Yeah.
I think it's a very common question people are asking who have taken boosters quite long time back. As of now, government would not take the second booster, even though some countries like US, Israel, they have done that. So we have to wait till our government recommends. Now, if you are keen to know whether you have immunity or not, you can get yourself tested, and Dr. Bagai can guide that in more, but it is not even recommended because the cellular immunity is much longer, and it is much more difficult to test.
Okay.
So my sense is don't worry about vaccine, but also take all the precautions with the previous people mentioned. Don't go into the crowd, don't go without mask, etc.
So continue taking the precautions. In fact, Dr. Bagai also wants to come in here. Yes, doctor.
Just a quick word. I think there's a lot of confusion in people's minds. Two quick points. The fourth dose, which we call as a second booster, it has shown in various studies to give no added immunity or protection with regards 3 versus 4. So if you've got 3 shots, it should hold good as at the present moment. The second point is that multiple boosters have actually shown to blunten the immune response, not enhance it.
Okay.
So this is also an important aspect, which is called as immune imprinting or immune dumping. And the last point which I want to make is for people who've just received 2, a very good alternative for your first booster. That means your third dose will be the intranasal vaccine. And very quickly on the intranasal vaccine, it can be used in combination with Covishield or Covaxin. It gives you excellent nasal protection and long-term T-cell, resident T-cell lung protection.
Okay, all right. So we have a lot of viewers calling us because of the growing concerns. Anil also joining us from Delhi. Thank you, Anil. Go ahead.
Dr. Bagai, good afternoon. I am your colony mate. I am 71. I and my wife have taken 2 Covishields earlier in India, and for third booster dose, we had taken Moderna in US. Now, whether we should go again for Covishield for the 4th dose, or you just answered 4th is not needed for us also?
I would not recommend, Anilji, I will not recommend a 4th dose just now. It has not shown to have any added protection, 3 versus 4. Also, there is no established government advisory that the 4th dose is at the present moment recommended. Also, keep in mind that your 4th dose may actually blunten your overall immune response rather than enhance it or even keep it at a plateau. Also, keep in mind that these vaccines were made for the original Wuhan strain of 2020. These new Omicron sublineages are hugely immune invasive. So your 2 combinations of the Indian vaccine with the Moderna is a fantastic combination. Wear a mask, it will give you much added protection.
Okay, all right. Rupal joining us from Vadodara. Rupal, thank you for joining us. What's your query?
Yeah, good evening to you. Thanks for taking my call. I just had a question for Dr. Bagai. My question is that since past few days it's been coming in the newspaper that it's a heterological vaccine. What is the meaning of heterological vaccine? As you just said that 4th dose is not required, like nasal dose for my parents, they've already taken booster shots last year. So what does a heterological vaccine mean?
I think Rahul can also answer it, or Dr. Jailal, but very quickly, what we call as heterogeneous regime is a mix and match trial. Homogeneous regime is keeping the same vaccine platforms. Universally, the heterogeneous regimes have shown to have almost 18 to 30-fold increase, not only in neutralizing antibodies, but binding antibodies. At the present moment, India has what we call as a homogeneous regime. That means you stick to the same vaccine platform, and the proof of the pudding is in the eating. The homogeneous has held India excellently well so far.
Okay, all right. Rishi joining us from Gurugram. Dr. Rahul, request you to take that question. Rishi, thank you for joining us.
Yes, last year I had taken 2 doses of Covaxin. For the first dose, I was given a printed certificate from the computer. And for the second vaccine, they told the dispensary in Pandara Road told me that you will be informed, confirmation will be given on phone that you have taken it. Till today, I have not received that confirmation. So in the absence of this, will they give me booster dose if I want to take it?
So good afternoon, sir. I think if you log in onto the CoWIN platform using your credentials, which we used, which was probably Aadhaar card, which I'm guessing, you will be able to get and download the certificate for yourself. and that certificate should have both the doses mentioned along with the date as well as the batch and the expiry number and who administered it to you. And based on that, they will be able to give you the third additional dose. Should not be a problem, sir.
Okay, all right. We have Dr. Neil Sharma also joining us from Vrindavan. Thank you for joining us, doctor.
Yes, good evening, everybody. My question is regarding vaccination for children. Below 12 years, children are not vaccinated and nobody is raising a concern about it. I want to know, is the government planning to vaccinate children and will it be done? And is it necessary also? Because I have a 7-year-old kid who is going to school and he's unvaccinated. So that's my concern.
Okay, all right. In fact, that's one of the concerns that many have expressed as well on what about the children who are not yet vaccinated. Dr. Dilip?
Yeah, I think this is a real concern. Our government has not yet approved them because enough evidence in the trials and are not there. Actively being considered, mental health experts are saying that we should come back. The only positive side is most of the children who are in a younger age, the disease are very much milder. So except the rare complications, children do not develop serious disease, and that is why the risk benefit of the vaccine is not the national guideline. As of now, in vaccination program.
Okay, all right. Thanking our viewers for joining us this evening, and we hope we've answered the queries that you had. Thanking our guests also for joining us and answering those very, very important questions. On that note, we're slipping into a short break.